Hello and welcome to Binge of the Week. I'm Sonia, aka Binge of the Week. Today's episode, SUPERhumanMAN. Happy anniversary to this movie. I totally did that on purpose and totally planned it out this way. It didn't coincidentally happen that I watched it on the 1-year anniversary at all. It's true though, I really want to be talking about Supergirl. That's what I wanted to do. But I don't want to do anything on the podcast that's not out on SVOD because it doesn't really feel accessible to people who maybe can't pay $20 on top of their subscription fees. So I'm going to hold off on Supergirl. But I was glad to revisit this movie exactly a year later. A little background, I think, on the whole Superman front for me is that I grew up loving this character. I dressed up as Superman. Yes, Superman. I did not dress up as Supergirl. I dressed up as Superman probably when I was around 8 years old for Carnival. That would be because I grew up in Italy at that point of my life, and it was not Halloween, it was Carnival. And from there I went on to be very attached to Christopher Reeve and his portrayal of Superman, and then him as a person, especially because I went on to be a horse girl, and his accident was very much a part of my mentality when it came around horses. So, all that to say, that's where I'm at. That's the stuff that I loved. And these past, I don't know, is it 10, 15? It feels like an eternity. Years of gritty reboots has been a personal hellscape for me. I'm happy for the people who enjoy them. I have no interest in a gritty, grounded, any comic, to be perfectly honest, but especially not Superman. I also grew up loving Batman, and I would call it possible, but honestly probable that I'll do one of the Batman movies on this podcast. But I'm much more your Michael Keaton era Batman person. I have no interest in that character being gritty or grounded either. It's a comic book. That's not why I'm here. So if you enjoy those, that's cool. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just not my style. And it's especially not how I want to see my Superman. If I could unsee one singular movie from my entire life, and I have seen thousands, it would be Batman versus Superman. It felt like a personal assault on me. So that's where I stand. And that's not to disparage Henry Cavill in any way. He did what he was asked to do, and he did it correctly. I have even gone to the mat for Brandon Routh, okay? That boy got done wrong. But we're here. We have a new Superman, and thank God it's got color, you know? And one more bit of background on me. I'm a visual artist who's known for their love of color. That's what people talk about when they talk about my photography a lot of the time. And I do love color, and I want to see color, bright color, in my Superman movies. So this movie made me happy from the get just for that. There's so much to cover about this, and for me in this movie, there's so much to love, and there was also so much that happened when I live threaded this, and I don't think I saw it coming, what I would get as reactions, but in retrospect, I should have seen it coming. I know that there are people who have feelings that are opposite to mine on this movie, and a lot of, look, I don't want to call everyone who doesn't like this a Snyder bro. Like, everyone has their own take. I'm going to try to talk about things I like and objective truths about filmmaking. Definitely those are two separate things. I like this. This is made for me because of all the reasons I just listed. But I saw this and then I saw it immediately again, I think the next day in theaters. I definitely wouldn't have waited more than 48 hours. I saw it as soon as I could after seeing it. That's how much I enjoyed it. And a year later, revisiting that, I always am very aware, even when I read like other people's reviews, whether they're very negative or very positive, but especially when they're very positive, that there's just this excitement that happens when something is new. And a year later, you might have calmed down and think it's still really good, but I was just very excited at the time. But this one, I think I feel basically the same. I feel as excited as I was in the theaters, and for me, it is a feeling thing, partly with this movie, where it just feels like Superman. It feels like the correct representation of the essence and distillation of what this character is supposed to be and what stories told around this character are supposed to do. So getting his essence right is really a lot of it here. For me, Superman is this distilled idea of humanity as it could be at its best when filtered through a non-human that grows up here and has more responsibility to be that perfect distillation of humanity because he has powers. You know, with great power comes great responsibility, and here he is, this ideal. And it's not that he doesn't make mistakes. The movie literally has him say this out loud. He makes mistakes, but perfect in the sense of his idealism towards people and how Lois points it out. He sees everyone as beautiful. He sees everyone as worthy, as deserving of his protection, because that's what this Superman is. He's a protector. That's where I'm going to land with a lot of this, because really, that's what they've nailed. It is Lois that points out that he sees everyone as beautiful. It is through his argument with Lois that she really learns in this head-to-head about the Baravians and his overstepping geopolitical lines when he yells that people were going to die. And it's that simple for him. It's not really this government, that government, who was on which side and who might be correct. There's just life, and life deserves to be protected. And to me, that scene is so beautiful because she's totally correct in her assessments as a reporter. And she's looking at the world through a person who lives in these systems and has to operate in these systems. And where do superheroes sit here? I mean, you've definitely got Guy Gardner and his bosses, or Lex trying to run his squad, and the DOJ trying to do their thing. But really, when Superman looks at it, it's not super complicated with all of these chess pieces to move around. It's people are going to die and I'm going to stop that. And that's both very simple and more complicated because it really asks people like Lois to set aside what they've normalized as the systems that they've accepted are a part of their world and question them on a moral basis. Because to me, Lois is correct, except that she can't know what it's like to be in the position of having to make a split-second decision when you can single-handedly stop an entire populace from dying. For her, it's a theoretical argument about politics. For him, it's a very real decision that comes with having to have these powers. And it does, like, these scenes are such a human way to deconstruct that and to have these arguments out loud, but in a way that doesn't feel at any point like exposition. Repeat listeners will know how much I love efficiency in filmmaking. It never sounds sexy when I say it, but it really is. I appreciate this movie. Somebody taught me a term. It was like the homecoming version of doing these reboots. Like, I appreciate this movie for skipping the part where Lois figures out Clark is Superman. I infamously hate at this point seeing one more version of the alleyway scene in Batman, because there's not one Batman reboot that doesn't show this damn scene. And if I have to see these pearls hit the floor one more time, I will lose my mind, because I just don't know who's coming into Batman blind at this point, and I don't know who's coming into Superman blind. And that's a choice. Like, obviously there are children who are seeing these movies for the first time, but there's a back catalog that can teach them this stuff if they really need to figure it out. And the efficiency of this movie lies in the, treating your audience as smart. Another thing I like to talk about often, in filling in gaps for yourself. And we'll get into that more later, because yes, right now we're in this space of like, who is Superman? We've distilled the essence of the best of humanity into this character that is more than human. And then, ta-da, my title, Superhuman Man, right? He's very human. He's the most human. He will make mistakes. He's not better than us, but he has to be like the best version he can be of us. And of course, that comes down through the whole theme of the movie of like choosing who you are, and the Kryptonian parents' vision of his life versus what he chooses to be, which is the thing that matters. So there's so much stuff for me to call out in this movie that I think works as just bits and bobs that I get attached to. This is the fourth time I've seen it, and they're just things that every time grab me. So I'm going to go through some of that stuff that really works for me, as just like, there's so much good world building and so much clarity around tone. So tone is always a big thing with me. The tone here, we've got very comic booky, like the stakes are high, but they don't feel that way of everyone's gonna die on camera because it's a tragedy. No, Superman saves people. You can pretty much guarantee like most people are gonna get saved. And of course, like there are deaths in the movie. They are upsetting, but it's not about him being perfect. Again, this is about the tone. It's humor. We're like having fun in a comic book world. We're not here to be a downer. This is about hope. Superman's about hope. We're not here to be gritty and dark, because that would be a different character. And that's when I really start to wonder why people are tuning into Superman. I've often said that my major take about this movie is, if you don't like this version of Superman, I'm just going to kind of tell you, like, I don't think you like Superman. Now, you don't have to like this movie, but if you don't like the ethos of this version, the ethos and the vibe of this version, then I'm not sure that you like the entire point of what Superman is supposed to be doing in the storytelling world. So we've got the tone, we've got the color, it's hopeful, the music works so well in this movie. I love the Superman theme. They use it to great effect with different versions at different moments, and it often gets me a little teary-eyed because it's very heroic, and it's got this like almost like a sigh, a breath of relief that he's here and he's gonna save the day and everything is gonna be fine. I had someone on Threads tell me, like, there's no stakes. It's terrible because like Superman saves everything all the time. You know what? I don't see a problem with it. Those are good stakes. I don't need a tragedy to happen to be interested in something. I don't know if some people do, and that's cool. Like, again, maybe this isn't your thing. So it's got all this great music, but also just stunning visuals. I love the visuals of this film. There's probably, I don't know if it's my favorite or second favorite. It's really hard for me to split hairs on this. It's the Superman rising out of the dust after the building collapses on the bridge. And he's just in the distance rising out as that shape. And it is just a shape. You can't see him really. But it's that iconic thing of, I know that cape. He's floating. It's against the dust. And the Superman theme plays. And he's here to save the day. Again, this is why we're here, right? When people bag on this. I'm like, you don't like this. Like, that's what you're supposed to feel. That scene makes me cry. And again, I mean, I cry at everything, but the hopefulness of he's arrived and everything's gonna be fine. Now, is that always true? Like, again, people do die in this, but you're supposed to feel that way. I think that's what this character in this story is supposed to transmit. So it is why I appreciate this take on Superman so much, that I'm willing to say that people who don't like it, that's probably not their thing. And I do love them for angling for the humor in this one and the more comic booky, like lighthearted vibe. And it's not that comics can't be dark. I mean, plenty of them are, but this sensibility of even him and Lois having this heart to heart in his apartment, quiet, dark exchange. He says, I love you for the first time. And it's all this like beautiful scene between two people where this movie again excels because it really knows the pacing of making this not about just giant fight after giant fight. I've always said my critique of Game of Thrones is that they always want you at a 10 because everything that's happening is always the end of the world at a 10. That doesn't work. You can't be emotionally at a 10 and then feel more. So coming down to the quiet relationshipy bits, but the genius of it for me is having that fight with that imp, that's whatever that thing was in the background, that is, first of all, creating this beautiful lighting for this scene, but also is like a comic beat of this entire thing that's happening back there. And it doesn't really matter. They're all normalized in this world to having that stuff happen. This is a world of people who are just like, there's a monster fight going on. Let's just go on with our conversation. And it's such a clear beat to me that it is like, it's not really taking the seriousness out of the exchange between Lois and Clark. That's very much still at the forefront. So they're not playing this gag to take you out of it. It's just that it's a very clear understanding of like, this stuff is still always happening, no matter what they're doing in their lives. And this scene is also just so special because it's the whole punk discussion that then runs to the end of the movie. And I always appreciated this just because I grew up with SLC Punk, which if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. People love Matthew Lillard. If you love Matthew Lillard and you've never seen SLC Punk, you should. I haven't seen it in a very long time, but I remember that movie teaching me as a teen what it meant to be punk was to be yourself. And that if you were trying to mold yourself to the punk aesthetic, then you weren't punk because you're just molding yourself to an aesthetic, which is the opposite of what punk is. And I love this exchange between them because Superman is punk. He doesn't care what the world says you should be. He does in the sense of like, you should be good, but that's not really cool. It's just that that's how he sees life, through his morals and living his best version of life, and that's being punk. So I would say he's much more punk than Lois because Lois isn't trying to conform to anything, but she's, a little bit your traditional cynic, smart city gal. So I see her a little bit more fitting in to a type than your Clark. But this world is just chock full of great characters, and that's probably true just from the foundation of the Superman comics and everything. There's just such a good cast of characters that I don't really think that was created by this movie, but this movie does the thing of using them to great effect, understanding every one of them as they should be, and then using them to maximum effect very efficiently. We don't get bogged down in explaining who anybody is, not the Daily Planet crew, not anybody else. Like, you can just figure it out as you go. And there's too many great actors putting in too many great performances to even talk about everybody. I will say that the whole Jimmy Olsen thing does hit me a little stronger than the other characters, only because, well, first of all, he delivers one of my favorite lines of the movie, which is just him saying Jesus Christ to being told that Lex tortured a dog. That sits in my brain permanently forever. that delivery, but also just because I've been seeing Skylar since he was a child playing young Sean on Psych, and I've always been excited to see him just because I think he's really talented. So to see him in this role really cracks me up. And I did really enjoy everything about Jimmy, even though they're kind of writing him like a little bit of like a not nice womanizer. But I think because he's played to be so dorky, it's kind of endearing and confusing to everyone. And that's why it still plays as a not cruel. Because at the end of the day, I don't know, this actor playing this character, if somebody else were doing it and playing it off as mean-spirited, it's not necessarily going to work. But I think, like, yeah, I don't like a male character putting down a woman for a physical feature like mutant toes, but because she's crazy, it plays because it's not really, it's just her personality is a lot for him. Like, she's obsessed with his mom after meeting her once is kind of like a funny thing to play. And I just enjoyed all the characters, though. I mean, I feel like we would all watch a Daily Planet spinoff with Wendell Pierce. He cracked me up. Every single thing he said was great. I know that there's a Jimmy Olsen show coming out, but I know nothing about it, and I'm going to keep that going and just enjoy it when it comes out. But getting back to the more visual part of this world, I really do appreciate that for something that is rightfully CGI heavy, and people who know me know I really love sparing use of CGI. I think the more sparingly you use it, the better it is. This obviously has to be CGI heavy a lot of the time, and yet it never feels like that to me because it's always making the appropriate decision about CGI. I feel like it's never used when it doesn't need to be. And of course, it needs to be a lot of the time. But that's the thing is like there's an appropriate amount that is for Superman, and there's an appropriate amount that is for, I don't know, some quiet little drama about two people, which is like in a room. So like that would be never, right? And this one uses it to such great effect that really what stands out to me about that one scene that everyone loves with Mr. Terrific, the big fight scene that he has, is that even though there's all these like flying henchmen being beaten up by these spheres and he's flying around and it's very CGI heavy, but what grounds it for me is that we've gone with the practical effect of having stuntmen on the ground in these Hawaiian shirts doing stuntman falls, but like the gag falls, like the kind of falls you see stuntmen. If you follow stuntmen on social media, they do a lot of these, like I got shot and like went flying midair or like did a flip and fell down, kind of over the top showcase kind of moves that don't always really end up in movies because like it is over the top. And again, here we've kind of chosen like the humor route of like go big, go for not feeling like the real world, make it feel like a comic book world. It is a comic book come to life, and these falls are such a great little touch that makes it feel real because it's real guys doing a real thing they do, but also just absurd because like you don't go flying like that when you get hit in the head with something. You don't just like flip it midair, but these guys do because they can do it and it's just cool. But again, this whole visual medium thing for me is like there are visual moments of this movie that stand out so much, and it's not just reserved for a stunt scene. The visual of Guy Gardner sitting at a diner having a bowl of cereal. This is your American superhero. Here's this Americana. It's not just a diner. It's this glass of milk. And it's just like World War II American dude. And I say World War II because this is when the glass of milk became this thing, this nutritious thing, and these campaigns around dairy became a thing in America. There's just this visual of having like a glass of milk on an American table. And he's so representative of this like old school macho idea of like who you should be to be like a superhero. Guy Gardner is not, I'm not saying he's fitting your traditional American values, but there's a macho-ness that is this like 1950s macho guy. And unlike, your emotionally evolved Superman, like he doesn't want to kill something. Killing things is cool. And just sitting there with this glass of milk. And I know people have gone another way with this. I think people were really intrigued when I posted about it because they've been watching The Boys, probably. But I haven't watched that show in a while. I think I stopped at season 2. For me, the whole drinking the milk thing is like a subversion of this whole Americana ideal. It's just like you're sitting here drinking a glass of milk because you are representative of this like Americanness, and especially in a diner. And he's sitting there watching, a genocide about to happen. And I have to appreciate this character for kind of sidestepping all these like money and who my bosses are and what I'm supposed to be doing, and then not wanting to be left out of being the good guy that Soups is, and joining in the fray. And look, it will be painfully clear. There might be people tuning into this that have read all the comics and done all the things I have not. I don't really know who Guy Gardner is, and I don't really mind that because like these movies are supposed to be for everybody. So I don't need to know more. I got the gist of this dude as much as I needed to enjoy the movie. And that's what I like kind of want people to take away from stuff like this, is that we'll get it on different levels, and I might even be wrong because I got it on a different level, but I certainly don't know what James Gunn knows, and I don't need to because I still had fun and it still made sense. And I really like this idea of him going to join the fray and having superheroes be involved in applying a higher moral justice to world affairs. They're not just fighting a supervillain like Lex, and they're not just fighting a big monster like the kaiju, but they're just going to step in and kind of stop people from killing each other as well, because we're not just going to fight the big bad space imp that's floating in the sky. We're also just going to not let you mow down a bunch of people who are defenseless because they're asking for help, and so we're just going to give it. So the whole hopefulness of this world gets me. I love living in it, and obviously it's made just for me because the visuals work so well. And my favorite visual, here we go. This is when we really get into it. My favorite visual is Superman saving the little girl from the kaiju. This was in the trailer, and when I saw it in the trailer, I cried. Again, I will admit once more that I cry at everything, so that's not a metric for anything. But I'm sharing that because it was an important visual to me even before I saw the movie. It was what signaled to me that someone got Superman right. And how could such a simple moment do that, right? To me, it is the distillation, the explanation of what Superman is. He's the shield. He protects people and dogs and squirrels and everything else that he protected. But you get my drift. He's a protector. That visual moment of him rushing in and shielding her from the danger and just folding this girl into his arms to be the thing that protects her. And also just, it's filmed brilliantly. It is one of those things where I start to get really excited about like visual choices of choreography and having one leg out and the cape comes swooping out and it just looks perfect. It looks how I want Superman to look. But it is, he protect. He is a protector. That's what this is about. And the way that this visual moment doesn't need to be more than that for me. To me, again, I can't know James Gunn's thought process or why he did things. But when I see that, what I understand is that the filmmaker is telling me this is a visual moment that shows you who he is. That's why it's important. And it was really shocking to me when I posted this moment, the amount of hate that was out there for it. And the amount of criticism because the little girl was out there kicking rocks when a kaiju was behind her. I thought that was such an interesting thing to experience, the kind of grievance people took with this moment. And for me, it's hard not to take two routes. I can explain this one away for you as one route, right? Like, I can come up with reasons why, and I can also tell you that throughout the movie, people are consistently standing around watching and not running for their lives when there's battles going on. This is the world that's built. We've been told that over and over in different scenes in different ways. And I could also get very pedantic and say, one kaiju step is a very big distance. She was pretty far away from where he was originally standing, yada, yada, yada. Like, I could get into it. There are people who said to me, people I watched it with, we decided that she was a deaf girl. She didn't really understand what was going on behind her. You can explain this away if you really need to. I would like to go back to efficiency, storytelling, treating the audience as smart. Come up with a decision if you have to. Like, if your brain requires you to need to understand why she does that, it can be any of those reasons. Or my favorite reason is people do dumb things all the time in real life. And I don't need that explained. I tried to say that to a few people, and it was really interesting to me the way that they needed it explained. And this for me brought up some feelings around just general filmmaking nowadays. I think filmmakers have started to maybe over-explain, to spoon-feed motivations and explain why everyone in this city block is standing in the place they're standing where they shouldn't be for this thing to happen. Like, what is it that we're really asking for? We're either asking for the girl not to be there or for there to be what? An entire other insert scene that explains why she's there? That to me is the kind of stuff that is ruining pacing and ruining storytelling a lot of the time. I think both the audience and the filmmakers are contributing to this environment where everything has to be this motivation and logic as to why this is happening, when so much of the real world is so absent from motivation and logic that you can understand. I remember doing a Q&A at a film festival for a movie I was repping, and I had this question where this person said to me, I thought the movie was great, but X character did Y thing, and no one would ever do that. I didn't understand the motivation of that. And I giggled to myself a little bit, and I said, look, we don't really advertise this as what the movie is, but the movie is based on a true story, and a real person really did that. And no one understands it. No one has ever understood it. And that's just something we've all had to accept about this person having done that thing, right? So that moment really stuck with me on the side of like being a filmmaker and trying to really connect with an audience, that sometimes people are going to do things. And yes, good writing shows you motivation a lot of the time, but motivation should come, in my opinion, from understanding that the character is going to do some stuff. Like, you're not necessarily going to understand why they did that exact thing. You can understand that they're a mess and that's why they do things. Like, this is not even a character. This is just a bystander. That a bystander is doing something stupid and getting themselves hurt in a comic book, it's kind of like your traditional comic book stuff. And this is why I lament the loss of 90s filmmaking so much, is because we used to just accept stuff like this, I feel like. And I'm happy for people to critique things. And look, my favorite website when the internet started being a thing, like old internet, was I think called nitpicking.com, something like that. It was literally just like movie mistakes, but that was more like production mistakes. And it was like the early days of people being able to be like, that glass was half full and then it was totally full, just like the stuff you find on IMDb nowadays. But that was more like in the spirit of being a production dork and wanting to notice all the things that were happening. I think that there's a spirit happening now that is a little different when it comes to evaluating moments like this in a movie. Just today, because I was prepping this, I found out about the existence of CinemaSin and just this huge following that this YouTube has, and the entire position being, here's everything that's wrong with this movie. And seeing the type of engagement this kind of stuff gets, and it was funny when I was getting a lot of replies about the little girl scene. Someone stepped in and said, I think all of these people watch the same YouTuber, and now I understand that comment a lot better. Yeah, there's a vibe of like wanting to combat the movie, wanting to fight the movie, wanting to out clever the movie, which is funny to me because it comes from this position of wanting to be more clever than the film was, but then not using this clever position to just explain to yourself why this girl is there, instead of saying, this movie is stupid because that girl is standing there. And it doesn't give an explanation as to why. And to me, the better use of all your clever thinking is to explain to yourself why she's there and enjoy the scene. I can tell you that I can tell you that I think she's there because it's a cool visual moment that shows you the encapsulation visually of what Superman does and is. Whether that's fair or not, you can make that decision for yourself. But to me, that's good enough because I'm not here to actually combat the filmmaker. Because I would argue that how we approach things is how we experience them. So if you're coming into a movie wanting to fight the filmmaker because you're going to need them to prove to you that they've earned every second and explained everything away that you feel needs an explanation, I'm not sure that you're gearing yourself up for enjoyment. Now, I've gone to see things made by people that I don't enjoy because I'm always interested and willing to give something a chance. And I've gone in there wanting to dislike it on some level because I usually dislike their stuff. And then I'll come out and be like, damn, I loved it. Because at the end of the day, even though I went in thinking, I kind of want to dislike this, I don't really combat the movie. Again, I'm happy for critiques. I have critiques of most movies I see. I think about that stuff all the time. But I don't think I'm coming in here to fight the filmmaker on what they're showing me. And there's a certain kind of faith, I think, that if you can give that up to the filmmaker and let them affect you and maybe not tear down the thing because you think it should have been done differently, but really look at it as to like, what were they trying to tell me? I think people might enjoy things more. It's like why that 90s sensibility has kind of died a little bit. It's because you can't just throw things out there and have them be fine. Like Speed is ridiculous. Like if I have to start dissecting some of the stuff that happens in Speed, I will never enjoy that film. People doing logical things all the time or having to like have someone explain to me why character Y did X thing right at that moment and no one explained it. This is why that sensibility of filmmaking kind of went away. And it's like a two-way street where like the filmmaker has to take the chance on something like this little girl getting saved and like the fun tone and like the efficiency of not explaining how she figured out that Clark is Superman, and just like you as the audience do the other side of the road, which is like, I accept all of these things on good faith. And I either create my own reasoning as to how we got here, or I make peace with the fact that the filmmaker has decided that reasoning that on screen was not really important, and we can just accept that. So I'm not saying don't critique. I gave this a 4.5 on Letterboxd, which repeat listeners will know a 5 means it's perfect and I wouldn't change a thing. A 4.5 means I probably could change something, but like, I don't know what. I usually don't know what. When I get to a 4.5, I'm like, probably not perfect, but like almost perfect. But I think not knowing what to change and knowing that like maybe it's got some flaws and that's okay. Yeah, I don't need to get deeper than that. I think it really does all the work of giving you the Superman hope, giving you the Metropolis world, giving you all these side characters, these beautiful visuals, these really important themes of family and choosing an identity and what it means to be a person as a human and what it means to be the person that you are trying to be. There's so much beautiful stuff in this that is really meaningful, and I'm excited for kids that get to grow up in this era of Superman and have something so full of hope and so full of idealism that yes, we should save the squirrel. And I would rather not kill the kaiju. And these people deserve saving regardless of geopolitical matters. All of it is so great. I didn't even really touch on, Nicholas Hoult did a great Lex. I'm going to enjoy the future iterations of this. He came off as this whiny, bratty billionaire who feels so small. He has to make other people feel smaller than him. And the one person he can't make feel small is Superman. I super enjoyed his I'll go find Clark Kent, your little reporter dude. Because he's a genius, but he can't figure that one out. It really entertained me. There's a million good things to unpack in this, and I am happy to sit on the thesis that this episode was really about how we enjoy film. And you don't have to like this. No one has to like anything. I think I've probably said it before. I'm well aware when a movie is good and I don't like it. Famously, I do not like It's a Wonderful Life. I know it's a great film. I've never argued otherwise. I just never want to see it again. I mean, just imagine my dismay in college when my film professor was like, we're going to do a scene-by-scene breakdown of a movie. I'm assigning It's a Wonderful Life. I wanted to die. It was a nightmare choice for me. I think that's the last time I watched it. So everyone's free to not like things, but I really just want to always be the voice of my crusade now is going to be just give things a chance. Maybe don't walk in being like, I can't wait to tear apart this movie and find all the reasons it's awful. I can't imagine watching things like that. I've disliked a lot of movies, but even then I'm looking at the merit a lot of the time, and maybe that's just my innate attitude. I just can't imagine wanting something to be bad because that's kind of what you're saying is I want to have a bad experience. And people like that will probably argue with me and say, but I enjoy doing this. Okay. That's fair. I would rather not enjoy movies with people who need to make a catalog of everything that's wrong with it as their enjoyment. Again, I love the nitpick. I love the watch used to be on the left wrist and now it's not. That's fun for me. So we all have our fun, but I think when we start moving that into an objective truth about whether something is good or bad, I think this is an objectively good film. And I enjoyed it. Those two things are separate to me. I will see you again, hopefully, when we do Supergirl and we get into that even more. That's an even more interesting take that people had. And I actually think I know what I'm going to watch for the next 2 episodes. I'm not guaranteeing anything. Anyone who's listened to me before knows that anything could happen. Sadly, yesterday what happened is that Sam Neill passed away, and I'm devastated by it. What that means is that this week I will be watching Jurassic, so I'm going to do Jurassic 1, 2, and 3 because he is in the 3rd one, and that's going to be the next episode of the podcast. It's probably going to involve me getting weepy, at least when I'm watching them. Probably not on the podcast, but I'm going to get weepy about Sam, and I already have a lot. So anything can happen. That's what made that decision. But it is summer blockbuster season. I do rewatch Jurassic every year during the summer and on Halloween. So that's fitting. And because it's summer blockbuster and I saw some comments about Mission Impossible today, I think I'm going to do a binge of all the Mission Impossible movies and do one episode, which I think is probably tenable. I don't know. That's a lot of movie. 8 movies. 8, and they got long at the end there. So if you're still here, thanks for listening. Stay cool.